In the last lecture, we tested the ngOnInit method here. Now let's focus on the add method. So here we create a new to-do object, then we call service.add to add it to the server. And then if the result is successful, we add that object in the to-dos property, in the to-dos array in this component. Otherwise, we're going to display an error message. So here we need to write 3 tests. First, we want to make sure that this component is going to call the server to save the changes. So we want to make sure that service.add is called. Then we want to ensure that if the result is successful, that to-do object is added in our to-dos property, in our to-dos array. And in the third test, we want to ensure that if the server returns an error, we put that error in the message property. So let's go to our spec file. First test. This component should call the server to save the changes when a new to-do item is added. Okay, once again, we're going to use a spy because we don't want to really call the server. We just want to ensure that service.add is called. So spy on service. The name of our method is add and call fake. So we're going to replace that add method in our service with a new method here. Let's look at the implementation of that method first. Okay, here's our add method. It takes a to-do object and returns an observable. So in our arrow function, you're going to get t, as in to-do, goes to, and here's the body of our function. Now here, once again, we need to return an observable. So return observable. We can just call observable.empty because we don't really care about what is returned from the server in this test. We just want to ensure that the add method of our service is called. Now we need to import this empty method on the top. So duplicate this line and add empty here. So rxjs add observable empty. So that was the arrange part. Now let's act. Component.add. And finally, the assertion. We want to ensure that service.add is called. How can we do that? First, we need to declare a variable here and set it to what is returned from spy on function. Now, expect spy to have been called. This is how we can test if a given method is called. Now the second test. So I'm going to select this test, duplicate, and change the test name. This component should add the new to-do returned from the server. So in this test, we want to simulate a to-do that is returned from the server. So instead of observable.empty, I'm going to use observable.from, an array. Now here, the response from the server includes only one object. So let's simulate that. Let's say ID is 1. And just like the test in the last lecture, we can extract this into a separate variable. So let to-do be this, and then we can replace that here. All right, now we want to change our expectation. We want to ensure that this to-do object that is returned from the server is in our array. So expect component dot to-dos dot index of to-do to be greater than -1. So this is our second test. Now there's actually another way to write this test that is a little bit cleaner and less noisy. So instead of using call fake here and defining an arrow function, we can call return value. And then we can get this observable here and simply pass it as an argument to this method. This way, we don't need to define an arrow function. So it's a little bit cleaner. So this was the second test when the server returns a successful response. Okay, now the third test. We want to ensure that if the server returns an error, we put that error in the message property. So select, duplicate, change the test name, should set the message property if server returns an error when adding a new to-do. So in this test, we're not going to work with the to-do object. And we want to change this. So instead of creating an observable from an array, we want to create an observable from an error. So observable dot throw. Once again, we need to import this static method on the top. So duplicate this and change this to throw. Now this method requires an error message. I'm going to declare that error here, error from the server, and then pass it to the throw method. Okay. Now we act, and finally, we expect that component.message to be this error here. Next, we're going to write tests for the delete method.